We know what a NASDAQ bubble is all about, and people lost a couple dollars there, and they were a little bit unhappy. So the shift went to housing. So you know, Alan Greenspan took interest rates down artificially low, and the principle of Austrian economics is when you artificially lower interest rates below the market, business people and consumers will do dumb things. They will cause the malinvestment. They will overinvest in certain industries. So it's not the consequence of rising prices that is the only concern about inflating the currency. That's only part of it. The real trouble is the malinvestment, the misdirection of investments. So when the interest rates went down in the 90s to the degree that people went wildly into the NASDAQ, that had to collapse. Then the next stage was raise the, create a housing bubble and securitize these things and sell them around the world and keep this bubble going. And there'll be inflation. The price of your house goes up, and the consumers say, I'm so wealthy. My $100,000 house is worth $150,000 now. I'll go out and I'll keep consuming. I'll borrow against this until interest rates change, until that bubble bursts, and we're in the midst of that, and I think it has a long way to go. But I don't even think that's the big bubble. The big bubble is the world malinvestment and dependency on the dollar. It still is the reserve currency of the world. With a gold standard, you have to adjust it on a daily basis. You have to pay. You run out of gold, you have to live, you have to cut back until that gold comes back in. It's self-adjusting. But in a paper standard, if you have the privilege of printing the gold, which is the dollar, you get to export paper. And then our jobs go with it. And that is the difficulty. That is why it's so hard now to really maintain the standard of living here. Unemployment is low. A lot of people say the economy is great, but there should be some concern because if you talk to low middle income and middle class people today, they're hurting. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay their heating bills. If you're retired and you're on Social Security, your inflation rate, your prices, your cost of living is going up probably 10%. And the government says, don't sweat it. Inflation is only 2%, so the cost of living increase is 2%. They can't keep up. It is very annoying to people like that, and they don't know how to figure it out, and it has to do with the monetary system, so that has to be adjusted. But what we really need to do is look at the real causes of our problem, and it's been going on for 100 years. We changed our tax system. We thought that we had to get rid of a system where we didn't have an income tax, so 1913, our country decided taxing income, which long-term is devastating, and it's at a crisis point. It's unconstitutional the way they collect it. We're guilty until proven innocent. We have to testify against ourselves, and it's devastating because it means the government owns all our income, and they allow us to keep a certain percentage under certain conditions. That's why I'm absolutely, opposed to the income tax. But at the same time, we introduced the notion of the Federal Reserve, which means if we can't tax enough and can't borrow enough, we just print the money. It makes no sense whatsoever. And they think this is a silly idea to talk about backing a currency with something and restraining the government. But if you allow governments to print the money, there's no restraint on government because they can always resort to the inflation tax, which is an invisible tax. And it hurts the very people that we're supposed to be helping. That the ones who have all the welfare programs, we've got to take care of the poor, the education, medical care. How do they do it? Deficit financing, print the money, and prices go up, and the very people they're trying to help are really hurt. If you look at the countries that have had long histories of paper currencies that come and go, such as countries south of ours, you don't have much of a middle class. You have a large poor class and a large wealthy class. That's what's happening in this country today. The middle class is being hurt and injured, and it's going to continue that way, and that's why there's a lot of unhappiness in this country, because we've lost control of our lives. We aren't self-reliant. We say that the government is the body that's supposed to take care of us. Entitlements have become rights. But who's the government? The government is us, so they have to keep doing this, taxing and borrowing and inflating. And they have to get it from somebody else. They can't produce. All the controls go to Washington, so where's your best investment? Getting a good lobbyist. It's a necessary investment for business people to know what's going on in the tax code and how do you get some of your money back. And if you have a city, what do? You have to get a lobbyist. If you're in education, how am I going to get some of this money back? And then if real wealth is dwindling and all the control is Washington, people are just grabbing and clawing to try to get some of the wealth back as the wealth is dwindling. Now, what I talk about is getting all this out of Washington, get it back in the hands of the people. That freedom, when you talk about freedom in the true sense of the word, you bring people together. Socialism and welfarism divides people because of the system I just described. But freedom brings people together, and our rallies are really excellent because they're very diverse. People want freedom not for one reason, for different reasons. So you might have it for lifestyles. You might have it for economic reasons. You might have it for homeschoolers. You might have it for economic reasons. All kinds of different reasons. And the great thing about this campaign, and really where the excitement's coming from, and even the organization of the fundraising comes from the young people. The young people know what's going on. We criticize public education, but believe me, the young people I meet, they know their arithmetic. They have figured it out. They're inheriting a big bill, a big burden, and they know they're going to pay into Social Security for a long time, and they're probably not going to get anything out of it. And what I'm offering is a chance for the next generation to get out of Social Security and develop some self-reliance, what made America great. So this is a message that indeed brings people together. And I think it is the stimulus behind the excitement of the campaign that we have going, because it is so necessary. But the message also has a lot to do with our foreign policy. If I talk to the young people, it's very, very rare for a young person to disagree with me on the foreign policy. And I'm adamant about the foreign policy. Matter of fact, it probably was the foreign policy that got the attention, probably the first debate. You know, this message is different. But traditionally, it's been said that if you don't want to go to war, that you're pegged as a far left-wing radical. And I don't come from that position. I come from a traditional, old right, constitutional position, and really a very Republican position. If you look at it over the last century, Republicans did more to try to keep us out of war and get us out of war after we were started. Think of Eisenhower being elected, Nixon being elected. Even our current president was elected on a humble foreign policy, no nation building, no policing of the world. So to say that I have a position that's bizarre to the Republican Party just isn't true. And the young people overwhelmingly support this, not only because of the cost, the fact it's their age group that have to go over there, and they see their friends and neighbors, you know, coming home, and the casualties are unbelievable. 25% of our people on the street today are veterans. Our veterans aren't being taken care of. They're lined up. Hundreds of thousands are looking for benefits and for post-traumatic stress syndrome as well as brain injury. It goes on and on. Even if you support the war, it's not going to continue because we're going broke. All great empires end when they overextend themselves, and this is what we have done. So the signal is when empires go too far, their currencies are ruined because all wars are fought through inflation. Before, they used to either steal the gold, or they would dilute the gold, or clip the coins, or print the paper. Now we just click a computer. But it has the same effect. Eventually, we'll be forced to live within our means. So that means the trillion-dollar operation that we have, that's $1 trillion a year to really maintain all that we do overseas, is coming to an end. But I wanted to bring it to an end gracefully, not wait for a dollar collapse and a calamity, which all other nations have gone through, because this is unsustainable. That is, I want the foreign policy of the Founding Fathers. No entangling alliances, friendship with people, trade with people, no sanctions. We should be trading with Cuba. We should 45 years sanctions to get rid of Castro. He looks like he outlived our, that whole process. And it's time we change our attitude about this. We shouldn't have sanctions on these countries. We're looking for a war with the Iranians. And now we know they're not even building a weapon. They haven't been doing it for 4 years. And yet we want to go to war with them, and we have sanctions on them. We have our Navy there threatening them, and nobody, the other candidates don't even want to take a nuclear first strike off the table against the Iranians. It makes no sense. The same thing, this whole war was concocted to go against the Iraqis. I mean, they were no threat to us. Nothing to do with 9/11, no weapons of mass destruction, all this death and destruction. We blow up their bridges, we're taxing